I'm going to be reading from page 46 of The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, titled Chanclas. "It's me, Mama," Mama said. I open up and she's there with bags and big boxes, the new clothes, and yes, she's got the socks and a new slip with a little rose on it and a pink and white striped dress. What about the shoes? I forgot. Too late now. I'm tired. Whew. 6:30 already and my little cousin's baptism's over. All day waiting, the door locked, don't open up for nobody, and I don't till Mama gets back and buys everything except the shoes. Now Uncle Nacho is coming in his car, and we have to hurry to get to Precious Blood Church quick, because that's where the baptism party is, in the basement rented for today for dancing and tamales and everyone's kids running all over the place. Mama dances, laughs, dances. All of a sudden, Mama is sick. I fan her hot face with a paper plate. Too many tamales. But Uncle Nacho says too many this and tilts his thumb to his lips. Everybody laughing except me, because I'm wearing the new dress, pink and white with stripes, and new underclothes and new socks, and the old saddle shoes I wear to school, brown and white, the kind I get every September because they last long, and they do. My feet scuffed and round, and the heels all crooked that look dumb with this dress, so I just sit. Meanwhile, that boy who's my cousin by first communion or something asks me to dance, and I can't. Just stuff my feet under the metal folding chair, stamp precious blood, and pick on a wad of brown gum that's stuck beneath the seat. I shake my head no, my feet growing bigger and bigger. Then Uncle Nacho's pulling and pulling my arm, and it doesn't matter how new the dress Mama bought me is, because my feet are ugly, until my uncle, who's a liar, says, "You are the prettiest girl here. Will you dance?" But I'll leave him. And yes, we are dancing. My Uncle Nacho and me, only I don't want to at first. My feet swell big and heavy like plungers, but I drag them across the linoleum floor straight center, where Uncle wants to show off the new dance we learned. And Uncle spins me, and my skinny arms bend the way he taught me, and my mother watches, and my little cousins watch, and the boy who's my cousin by first communion watches, and everyone says, "Wow, who are those two who dance like in the movies?" Until I forget that I am wearing only ordinary shoes, brown and white, the kind my mother buys me each year for school. And all I hear is clapping when the music stops. My uncle and me bow, and he walks me back to my thick shoes, to my mother, who is proud to be my mother. All night, the boy who is a man watches me dance. He watched me dance. So Chanclas expresses many elements of Chicano literature, starting by the idea that's a vignette. It doesn't express an ideal plot, but it is a short story where you can see a story that happens to the girl, Esperanza, as she learns that her shoes aren't defining her identity and her appearance. There's a lot more to it than that. Another element of Chicano literature that can be shown is religion and identity. Religion is shown as it's basically the entire setting. So the event that Esperanza is attending with the shoes is a baptism, and she's inside a church, which is a direct reflection of Chicano, as many Mexican Americans practice Catholicism, and other family members or cousins by first communion are talked about in the story. Identity is shown through Esperanza and her self-consciousness. She doesn't have much confidence, but as the story goes on, she eventually learns that her identity isn't based on the shoes. She doesn't trust her uncle. She doesn't believe that she's beautiful, and it all comes back to the shoes. They give her so much insecurity. But as we continue on to the end of the story, her perspective seems to shift. The story is a vignette, but it can also be classified as a Bildungsroman. As you can see Esperanza develop and change as the story goes on. She starts out to be very insecure. She often talks about these shoes and how it's prohibiting her from doing different things. She's not being noticed. She doesn't feel beautiful. But by the end, as she dances with her uncle, she realizes that her identity isn't determined by the shoes, and there's much more to it than that. She is seen lacking confidence to the extent in which her uncle asks her to dance, but she's hesitant. She thinks she's too ugly, but by the end, she details how her mother's proud of her. She sees the boy looking at her, and she has a new profound confidence. There's also figurative language in Chanclas. There's imagery as the scenes that are being portrayed are described with colors and patterns. As Cisneros talks about Esperanza's dress, she says it's pink and white and has stripes. Now, the reader can now picture this dress that she has on more vividly and get a better understanding, as well as the shoes. She says they're brown and white and they're crooked. She talks about how these traits relate to Esperanza's dislike of them. She also uses similes. She describes various scenes this way. She talks about Esperanza's feet and how big they swell. They're heavy like plungers, as she says. And now readers can imagine the way that Esperanza's feet look or feel to her. And she also describes the way that her uncle and her Esperanza are dancing. They're dancing like in the movies. This shows energy and entertainment in the dance. Another example of a story by Sandra Cisneros that includes Chicano literacy elements is Hips on page 49 of The House on Mango Street. I like coffee, I like tea, I like boys and the boys like me. Yes, no, maybe so, yes, no, maybe so. One day you wake up and they're there, ready and waiting like a new Buick with the keys in the ignition, ready to take you where? They're good for holding a baby when you're cooking, Rachel says, turning the jump rope a little quicker. She has no imagination. You need them to dance, says Lucy. If you don't get them, you may turn into a man. Nenny says this, and she believes it. She's this way because of her age. That's right, I add before Lucy and Rachel can make fun of her. She is stupid, all right, but she is my sister. But most important, hips are scientific, I say, repeating what Alicia already told me. It's the bones that let you know which skeleton was a man, when it was a man, and which is a woman's. They bloom like roses, I continue, because it's obvious I'm the only one who can speak with any authority. I have science on my side. The bones just one day open, just like that. One day you might decide to have kids, and then where are you going to put them? Gotta have room. Bones gotta give. But don't have too many or your mind will spread. That's how it is, says Rachel, whose mom is as wide as a boat, and we just laugh. What I'm saying is who here is ready? You gotta be able to know what to do with your hips when you get them. I say, making it up as I go. You gotta know how to walk with hips. Practice, Like if half of you want to go one way and the other half the other. That's to lullaby it, Nanny says. That's to rock the baby asleep inside you. And then she begins singing seashells, copper bells, envy, ivy, over. I'm about to tell her that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but the more I think about it, you gotta get the rhythm, and Lucy begins to dance. She has the idea, though she's having trouble keeping her end of the double dutch steady. It's gotta be just so, I say. Not too fast, not too slow, not too fast, and not too slow. We slow the double circles down to certain speeds so Rachel, who has jumped in, can practice shaking it. I want to shake like a hoochie coochie, Lucy says. She is crazy. I want to move like a heebie-jeebie, I say, picking up on cube. I want to be Tahiti, or meringue, or electricity, or Temblique. Yes, Temblique. That's a good one. And then it's Rachel who starts it. Skip, skip, snake your hips, wiggle around and break your lip. Lucy waits a minute before her turn. She is thinking, and then she begins. The waitress with big fat hips who pays the rent with taxi tips says nobody in town will kiss her on the lips because she looks like Christopher Columbus. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, no, maybe so. She misses on maybe so. I take a little while before my turn, take a breath, and dive in. Some are skinny like chicken lips, some are baggy like soggy Band-Aids after you get out of the bathtub. I don't care what kind I get, just as long as I get hips. Everybody getting into it now, except Nenny, who is still humming not a girl, not a boy, just a little baby. She's like that. While the two arcs open wide like jaws, Nettie jumps and arms across me. The rope ticking, the little gold earrings her mama gave her for her first Holy Communion bouncing. She's the color of a bar of naphtha laundry soap. She's like the little brown piece left at the end of the wash, the hard little bone, my sister. Her mouth opens, she begins. My mother and your mother were watching clothes. My mother punched your mother right in the nose. What color blood came out? Not that old song, I say. You gotta use your own song. Make it up, But she doesn't get it or won't. It's hard to say which. The rope turning. Engine number 9, running down Chicago line. If the train runs off the track, do you want your money back? Do you want your money back? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, no, maybe so. I can tell Lucy and Rachel are disgusted, but they don't say anything because she's my sister. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, no, maybe so. Nenny, I say, but she doesn't hear me. She's too many light years away. She's in a world we don't belong in anymore. Nenny. Going. Y-E-S spells yes. In, out. You go. So Hips is a vignette. It talks about a group of women. There's not really a plot, but they're establishing the significance of hips as they're jump roping. They talk about how hips develop and how it makes a woman what a woman is, which leads us into identity. They contribute to the identity of a woman. They kind of establish the line between men and women and their function and in just their structure and the way that they look. Nenny says if you don't have hips, you'll turn into a man, which isn't exactly true, but the narrator explains that she's talking about the structural difference, and it establishes kind of a role between the genders. In many cultures, hips are significant to the capabilities and the identification of women. Not only that, but in society, just mass culture, body image is a big thing, and a lot of times women are judged based on their hips. Sadly, sometimes it is in a bad way, as they may not conform to what is ideal for society to perceive, but there's no mistake in saying that hips do give women certain functions that are relevant in different cultures. While hips may not seem directly like a Bildungsroman, in generic terms, it does show the development of women. Though it may not be a character morally, it still shows how women from a young age can change to an older age, even if it's just talking about body image or body function. Figurative language is also displayed in similes and metaphors that are used to describe size and shape of women's hips, maybe their function, or even just to describe a character like Nenny. As she's describing the size and shape of women's hips, Cisneros says, Rachel, whose mom is as white as a boat. And then as she describes function, she uses like a new Buick with keys in the ignition. As Nenny is described, she says she's the color of a barb naphtha laundry soap. Though it's the narrator saying this, as Cisneros writes it, those different similes and metaphors help the reader to understand the significance of hips, whether it's their shape or their function. So both stories are vignettes, and they have many elements of Chicano literacy. They're just short little stories. They don't really have plots, but they're very capable of teaching themes, as well as just giving an insight into different Mexican-American relations. This is Addison Jones. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and I hope you can learn more about the Chicano literacy elements present in hips and chanclas by Sandra Cisneros in the house on Mango Street. Thank you.